I'm a writer, um, and I'm bringing these hangouts here because I think it's interesting to talk about different subjects that involve our lives, to sometimes get some air into a discussion about thoughts and feelings that we have is helpful to reform our own opinions about such things. I'm a hypnotherapist, so I also have a good understanding of the way the subconscious mind works and all of those little inner tinkerings that kind of rattle when we try to do something new or when we don't quite do as well as we thought we were going to do on something. Um, so today is a good day. I'm in Everett, Washington, and it's raining. It's raining all day. It's been kind of one of those strange rainy Sundays. Sometimes here it doesn't actually rain all day. It just kind of threatens all day to rain. But today it actually cut loose and it's been raining all day. So today we're talking about risk. And I see I have at least one friend on the border down below. And some more may be arriving soon. So today it's about risk, about that old friend, that old foe named risk. How many times we are cautioned against taking risks. And certainly the older we get, the more people line up to tell us not to take risks. So I wanted to talk about that for the young as well as the white-haired ones. I hate to use the word old because old always means 10 years older than I happen to be at the moment. So today is about risk and what it can do for us, what it prevents us from doing, and how we can kind of grab it by both ears and make it behave as well as possible. So risk has been with us and we've had to deal with it for as long as we've transferred carbon dioxide and oxygen. In the human line, I think of a rabbit who goes out to graze in the pasture is taking a huge risk with hawks and egrets and things that eat rabbits. But we're not rabbits, so we know about risk and we play with it a little bit. The old stuff about risk had to do with maybe being far enough back in our own histories that when we looked at a cave, were we willing to see what was inside the cave in order to claim that cave for ourselves? And happily, yes, we were. We were able to figure out how to get whatever was in there out and claim it for ourselves. I think of early people's dealing with fire. Fire was a known death bringer. It was bad stuff, and yet somehow we figured it out. And a few people probably got some blisters in the process, but we figured it out. And occasionally, yes, it does leap out from under our control and reaffirm its dominance, but for the most part, we've got it. I think of these little tiny people with sticks chasing enormous mammoths into oblivion, apparently, but they did do that, and I'm sure some did not come back from the hunt. And then I think about people making boats. Making boats is a big jump because we know that we can stand on land, and figuring out how to stand or sit in the water took a big mental leap. Hello there, new joiner. So here we are talking about risk, about that early human being who looked at water, knew that water would eat him up, and figured out how to make a boat, how to put a barrier between himself and the water. And so it's about figuring things out. Now, if we want to fast forward the button from caveman days to today, I think of the risks we take. Someone asked me, "Oh, don't you like going to the casino?" And I said, "No, I'm just not a gambler." And I thought, I am a gambler, but I'm a very high stakes gambler. I don't poodly around with the pennies and the nickels and the dollars. I drive I-5 every day. I drive the interstate every day. Yeah, I'm a gambler. And I trust in my ability to see ahead and to maneuver. So yeah, I'm a gambler in that sense. And so I know some of the risks of driving. I know some of the risks of driving on the interstates, and I know some of the risks of driving on little tiny back roads too. So it's a playoff, the calculating and the taking of the risk. And in those ways, risks are our friends. They keep us aware. They heighten our awareness of the possibilities. I take a shower. Now, everybody knows that falling in the shower is a very common way to break things. Not necessarily the shower, but break personal things. And so I risk doing that. Now, I hedge my bet. I hedge my bet by putting down a mat. I have a grab bar in the bath, things like that. But it's still there. It's still there. And so those are some of everyday risks. And those risk factors become our friends when we stay aware and stay awake and work around their dominance. And it gets a little bit more risky and more difficult when we get into bigger issues such as relationships, having children, or not having children, in buying a house, or starting a business, or changing careers. These are big risks. And again, the risks, the details of the risk can heighten our awareness and keep us somewhat cautious. So I would like to toss that out to my friends down here about your thoughts about risk and where you've played with them in your own life and won, and when you have played with them in your own life and lost. How about you, Sophie? Are you on? Yes, details. Details of the risk are I want to go to Seattle. I want to go to a big parade. So I ask, do I have gas in my car? That's one of the details. Where is the construction downtown? That's a detail. I can either bull my way through it or I can figure out a way around it. Do I have enough air pressure in my tires? What's the nature of the parade? And if I want to view it from on top of a building, do they have guardrails? I'm a little queasy on the tops of buildings. That sort of thing. Does that make sense? So, Robert, welcome. And how about you? Have you got a question, or can you talk about a risk you've taken and either succeeded or the risk beat you?
Well, yeah, I play the stock market every now and then, and I've lost more, but there's times I've won.
Mm-hmm.
That's a risk with my finances sometimes. One time I put a lot into my taxes and I lost. And one time I put a lot and I won. So yeah, I take risks. I guess I am a gambler, but pretty much that's about it now. You take a risk when I take, I put my kids on the bus in the morning. I trust that bus is gonna take them to school.
Yes.
hmm
Yes. And that's that everyday risk.
That's an everyday risk. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The um the idea of the stock market is a good one because a lot of people do say stock market and gambling are the same in a gambling in a casino. Um, the difference to me is that in a casino the house always wins, always. Whereas with the stock market, you're kind of on your own skill matched with the the drive of the market, but you can make investments and get out of investments and shift your money. And yeah, the goal is that a lot of people should make money, or the stock market would not be what it is today. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense. Believe me, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And my other question is, when you lost all that money, did you live?
Yeah, we still lived, but just a little harder. It wasn't. Actually, it was the same because it was tax money, so we didn't. It didn't really change our lifestyle at all.
Right. Right.
Yes.
And I think that's the downside of things is when you risk something and lose.
Mhm.
What are you really losing, and what are you gaining in knowledge and appreciation? I don't have an axe to grind on that one, but I think it's sort of worth talking about. Now Sophie's got a thing over here. Says she says it's planning on the best way to take the risk. Every time I moved to a new place, I've taken a risk, but it's with the goal of making my life better. And yes, moving is a big, big risk. You love the house and then you find out it's got fleas, or you love the house and you find out that your neighbors have acres of whatever it is that you're allergic to. Or the other side is that sometimes you move into a place you're not that excited about, and then you find out all of its great benefits. So risk can turn around. It can be about doing something that you're like, not so much, and finding out there's a lot there that you hadn't taken into account. And I'm thinking of a pivotal risk moment for myself that I've really been thinking about in the last maybe the last year, and it happened years ago. Years ago, I was up on a cliff with a friend, and it was in New Mexico, and they have cliffs there that you can follow a footpath up, but you can't go back. You have to go all the way to the top, and they were designed that way. Some say they were designed that way to keep attacks from happening, and others say no, it's natural, and I don't really know. But we got stuck, and the only way was to go forward, but there was this bush, and there was a big bush. Well, actually, it wasn't very big. It was just a bush, and it was in the path, and there was no way of getting around it but to swing around it. And it was straight down a good 200 feet of scree and rock and boulders and bad things. My girlfriend weighed about 90 pounds and was about 5 feet tall, and off she went. Now, that one swing, says I to me as I'm sitting on this path, did that loosen the roots? Is that bush strong enough to hold me at 5'7.5" and 100 and mumble pounds? And I had to say yes because I didn't have a lot of option. And there is that terrible moment where you grab something and jump. And it held. As I'm here today to tell you, it did hold. And somewhere in there, I learned a lesson that was so frightening that I didn't really want to think about it for a long time. We do that sometimes. And that is that I can trust myself to trust something else. I was always raised that, if it wasn't me, it wasn't going to happen. I had to. And so the trusting thing was very, very interesting for me. And the idea that I did live was very exciting, I can assure you. And it was so exciting and it was so big. I didn't tell anybody about it until about a year ago when I wrote a little story about it and risked my story to a competition which I lost. I didn't even get honorable mention, but it still felt good to write it down. Um, so making life better requires risking. Um, Risking and losing, yeah, yeah. Relationships, you can lose a lot, and it hurts a lot. Um, if you can, view yourself with some compassion, it's not usually terminal, and you move on. But if you can also learn what you need to learn from it, from the loss of a relationship, what had I hoped? Where were my mistakes? What was that about? Becomes a lot more intellectually interesting than, yeah, he doesn't love me, or whatever. So risking. Sophie, any more on this? You'll type away. How about you, sir? How about you in other kinds of risks, relationship risks, or
Can you hear me yet?
yep.
Oh, okay, there you go. I had it muted because my kids were fighting. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
that's a risk about getting online when you've got kids in the room.
It's hard. Um, oh yeah. Oh my God, there they go again. Okay, never mind. And things that I don't know, things that I don't do or take risk anymore. Um, I used to do like I used to drive fast. I used to do things like that. But I used to rock climb because I used to live in LA. We used to do a lot what you were just saying about talking about those cliffs and we used to do a lot of that and on San Francisco. But I don't want to do things like that anymore. I don't really take things the unknown, like you were saying. I don't really do things that I'm not sure I can do as much anymore.
Part of that's called wisdom.
Yeah, I guess so.
And from your picture, I can see it's also called I've got to be here.
Yeah, I've got to be here. Yeah.
I've got to be here for these little ones, even if they are fighting in the background. So Sophie writes, so risk is opening up for the possibility of something good, knowing that the reverse could be there as well. The good that comes may be the opening of a part of ourselves, and that can feel very good. I think that's a wonderful piece, Sophie. It's almost the two most exciting places are at the beginning when we say yes to the experience and jump over to the other side when we've made it. And that opening to the self, opening to the universe so the universe can enter that self is it's very exciting and it's very dangerous. And yet there's a trusting that we'll be okay. That even if it's not fun, we'll be okay. And sometimes leaning into the not fun part has a satisfaction that is deep and actually a lot more satisfying than doing the silly things of our youth, which can be seen as even risky behavior: driving fast, bungee jumping, rock climbing, skydiving, doing drugs, sex with people we don't know about. Um, those are sort of youthful, almost prove it behavior. And then somewhere in there we get a little wisdom that says it's worth kind of hanging in for the long haul. The world has more to offer than just this moment. And so we can do that. Risk. We can't live without it. Can't live without it.
Every day's a risk.
Every day. Every
Just
day we get
minimize it.
up and certain people I know, didn't think of the risk of being on their in their back room, and the footing goes out from under you sometimes. Uh, Climbing into the back of my, I have one of those little plastic pools that the back part of it had collapsed because I had just put it somewhere and I hadn't done the right things to it. I was going to move it, and then of course it filled full of water and part of it collapsed. So I went to shove some things underneath it and got eaten by some blackberry bushes. And that's a risk you don't think about. I mean, there I am. I'm in the blackberry bushes and the thorns are in me, and I'm not doing very well in the back of my pool. And I'm wearing a lot of long sleeves, long pants right now to kind of cover up the damage that I did by not thinking about it. And those are minor things. Sometimes they're a little more major. And so we try to keep our eyes open. We try to remember that if we think in terms of risk and pull it to us as a friend, it can keep us aware. If we ignore, then we're kind of hoping on luck. And luck just is. You don't know which way it will turn because there's no sense of self in luck. They say luck of the draw, and whatever you pull, you pull. So my friends, oh my goodness, this is lovely. Now Sophie's got something over here. When I moved to Washington from Louisiana in my mid-50s, that was a very big risk. But what it's done for me has created a life that hasn't been all good, but the journey has been exciting and made my life more worthwhile. Yeah. And what was the risk of staying in Louisiana? What would that have been? I remember when the one time my mother offered me the possibility of moving home. I was recently divorced, pretty much a mess. And what she said was, well, I guess you could come home if you wanted to. Well, home was across the country in a house I'd never lived in because she had lived there after I went elsewhere. And luckily, I very quickly ran down the risks. Go home. Now, home means mom. Now, I loved her, but my knowledge of my own ability to sink into passivity reared its head and said, oh, goody, goody, let's go home. Let's go home. Yep. Mom can take care of you. And I said, no, thank you, Mom. That I dare not do. And thank heaven for that. It's kept my backbone a little strong. So let's see. When I moved to Louisiana, stagnation. Staying in Louisiana was stagnation. Yes, stuff does sometimes happen, and we make a misstep, and I've run out of words. Wait a minute. Oh, misstep, but that's better than not being alive. Absolutely. Absolutely. So here we are. Not doing anything is like rotting while you're still alive. Yow. Whoa. Right. Having no risks means 14 locks on your doors, everything known. You only let people in you've known a long, long, long time. You don't go anywhere. You don't do anything. And that's rotting in place. That's worse than running in place. So that was last week. But this week it's let's not rot in place. So, Robert, you may be mature and wise. I hope you take a few risks and teach your children that it's okay to take calculated risks. Sometimes you bang your knee, and that's not the end of the world. Sometimes it's time to fly. And thank you, Sophie, for your input. I love that. And I will think of my karate dreams. I took karate for a while, and for a long time I mentally practiced my karate moves, and then I realized that if I needed to, I don't need one move. I need 3 to 4 moves. So when you take a risk, which we do every day, but when you take them and they're known and calculated, always plan 3 to 4 moves in, and that will help you make the jump and land safely and well. And I hope certainly that you land safely and well far more times than you slip and bang your knee. So it is time to come to a close. These are short and sweet. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for participating. And let us go and live. Live well and happily. And Robert, say hi to your babies. Give them a hug.
Thank you. I will.
And Sophie, I am so glad you moved to Washington. You have no idea. And the day is done. Have a wonderful evening. I'll see you all next week, maybe. Thank you and good night.
Good night.